my name is Martin Treder, and I would like to share some thoughts with you about data governance in large, complex organizations. This is what we all agree data governance should look like, right? Well orchestrated, resulting in something that really sounds good. Today's reality, as most of you will be aware, looks a bit different. And I'm referring to objective information such as an ISG survey from not too long ago, which found out that a mere 15% of digitization projects are successful. And you may have heard of other surveys with similar results. And Gartner has been reporting for years now that AI projects in general fail. They don't meet the commercial expectations that come with them. And even worse, while still many chief executive officers are still very motivated and want to see this happening, the CFOs, looking at the money, start asking, where is the return on investment? Why am I investing in something that doesn't give me commercial value? And at the same time, we realize that in true decision making, not too much has changed for the last 20 years. Still the case that most important decisions are still based on gut feeling. But there is a pattern, things that we observe over and over again. Organizations lack corporate perspective on data. Very often, data is handled in a fragmented way. Each business function does its own thing. Or by geographic entity. Our country organization in Mexico thinks they know best what to do. The organization in Tunisia thinks exactly the same, and the results are not compatible. Or very important, very often, particularly in Europe, data is managed by IT. They often think they don't need the business functions because they are the experts who know how to do it. And particularly in the area of master data management, you have a lot of functions covering their area, but altogether still don't cover everything because a lot of master data is hidden in Excel files or hard-coded somewhere deep within the applications. Maybe you say you don't have any data governance at all. I don't think so. It is not possible not to govern data. Why? Because if you don't do anything, that is a decision to govern data a certain way. Unfortunately, unlike a typical anthill, companies don't get self-organized in data matters. People need guidance. They need to understand why they are doing it. They need rules. They need to understand how to do it. And they need motivation. There must be a purpose behind it. Why am I doing it differently? Why do you ask me to do it a certain way? There must be a good reason behind it. All in all, data needs to be actively governed. So, what's going wrong? And why is that? Let's first have a look at a real case. There was a big corporation that had asked me to look at the status in data matters. And this is a summary of my findings. First of all, there was no single source of truth, no consistent data governance. Everybody did their thing and optimized it the way they thought it would be best for them, for their corner in the organization alone. Second thing, no cross-functional target setting. What are you aiming at? Do you have a company-wide target, or do you have dozens of functionally or geographically disparate targets that altogether don't really support the overall target of the shareholders. Data management software. Oh yeah, IT is always ahead. They buy the best possible software, state of the art. But surprisingly, it doesn't meet the needs. And it was the same here. The best software was in place. It was hardly used, and where it was used, it didn't fulfill the expectations. No single corporate business data model. The data model tells you how things relate to each other. It should properly reflect the business reality. But there is only one business reality. How can there be individual data models in individual departments or in individual country organizations or subsidiaries? That is not possible. Programs are run without data quality and scope. Programs consider data a side aspect, while in fact data was core to the success, and where data wasn't looked at, programs failed. Finally, the people aspect. Employees had lost faith. They didn't know why to do anything in that direction, why to look at data, why to focus on it and consider it in their work, because there was no guidance, no encouragement of working together, working a certain way. So everybody did what he or she thought would be best in that very moment. The second big typical gap, lack of leaders' awareness. And it's for good reasons that you see fog in the background. A typical statement I've heard, that aspect has already been taken care of. Oh yeah, we have it under control, we know, and somebody is certainly doing with it. Otherwise, I would probably have already heard a complaint about it. We've been successful without it. Yeah, for the last 30 years, we have worked successfully in the market, gained market share, and nobody has ever asked for proper data governance. Well, maybe something has changed. People know what they are doing. Tremendous confidence in the quality of the people. Well, maybe. People may be good. But how can good people leverage their capabilities without the proper governance that makes them work together, work the same way, and help them learn from each other? We have a CIO for that. I hear that very often. And the misperception behind that is that data is part of IT. Well, the T in IT stands for technology, and technology is tremendously important to process what we are doing to support the daily business. But it's something different from data, from the content, from the learning, from the relationship of data, which has to be taken care of by a function independent of data applications and hardware and infrastructure. We have good people, we get it done. Well, if you give your good people a good framework and you tell them how to work together, then you may get it done. The worst statement that I keep hearing is, where's the problem? Tell me which problem you try to solve with data management. And that's a fundamental statement that you will have to respond to in a very fundamental way. Let's look at a typical gap. I call them John Doe's issues because this is to be found across the workforce. You see that people don't know how to properly deal with data. Nobody has ever told them how could they ever found out on their own. And then you see those people who know, but they're simply too lazy to do so. Again, you have people who don't understand the benefits. What is the point? What is the added value for the shareholder, for the owner, for the entire company? And again, you have people who do understand but they still focus on their individual benefits, or at best on the benefits of their department. Then you have people who don't understand the long-term impact of bad data handling. And then again, those who understand, but who want short-term success and don't care about the long-term implications. All of these, and you may have thought that the colors, the two different colors were chosen for a reason. They are based on lack of knowledge or lack of motivation. And if you have those together, it's a bad mix. So what does that bad mix result in? First of all, lack of data collaboration. A fundamental pillar of successful data management is collaboration across the entire organization, and lack of data business ownership. No, data is not to be done by some expert, IT or anybody else, or the data science department also. No, data is everybody's business. And if that is not the case, the workforce support for proper data management shrinks dramatically. Let's have a look at another typical gap. You know, you need to handle data end to end. If you do the single steps in isolation or leave out some of them, it won't work. Right? And have a quick look at some of those steps. You know, it starts with managing the sources. Where does data come from? Is it of good quality? Is it reliable? Does it fit with other data that we receive? And here, think of external data providers, think of data import, think of customer providing data, think of our own workforce typing in information from documents. Then you have to validate it. Before it comes in, you need to be sure that the data that you receive is of good quality and that it fits with the rest and the logic. You have to classify it. How does it all relate together? What does it mean? What's the definition behind it? Otherwise, you will misinterpret data. You will have to manage data quality, because data quality is not good by nature. Data quality needs to be taken care of. And even if data is good, it will turn bad over time, because a correct address becomes wrong if somebody moves. You have to do data housekeeping. Yeah, sounds like a side aspect, but it's tremendously important. Think GDPR. If you don't delete data on time that you are not supposed to keep, or if you just collect all the data that you can get hold of, how on earth will you ever be able to find what you're searching, right? If you try to find the needle in a haystack, it's counterproductive to add further hay. Finally, you come to using the data. And there may be various ways of using data, whether you use it for operational purposes, for legal reporting, for process automation, for analytics or machine learning. All of that falls under usage. And now imagine you have a company that just focuses on one sort of usage, say on analytics. In that case, the entire chain looks like this. And that's not really a good approach, because who is going to manage all the other steps that are required so that what gets into usage really makes sense? It's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. Another gap, part of the end-to-end handling, right? Working with bad master data. Compare it to cooking with bad ingredients. It does not help to have a good recipe or a great chef. because rotten eggs don't allow for a good omelette. But even worse, imagine you have bad ingredients. You would taste that immediately, or at least you get very sick because it's bad. But imagine you process bad master data. The result will be syntactically valid. It will look like good data. A good 5 and a bad 5 look the same. So you may take wrong decisions and you might never ever find out that you could have taken a better decision had you taken better data. So all in all, multiple types of issues prevent data governance in large organizations from being good and efficient. It's the organizational silos, think of different departments, think of different subsidiaries, of different country organizations that all think they need to handle data their own way. Lack of central authority. If there's nobody who tells you about the one glossary that everybody has to work towards, you will inevitably end up with an organization that has dozens of glossaries. And what a surprise, they will not fit together and people will suffer from misunderstanding when talking to each other. Lack of the end-to-end view, you've seen that if you don't start at the very beginning, you will have rubbish in the end. And lack of buy-in, both from the executives and from the workforce, will kill any attempt to govern data successfully. So, what can we do about it? Preconditions are starting with the two most important preconditions for being successful in this area. It's the executive mandate and it's the support by the workforce. And while the executive mandate is a precondition for you to start, right? Don't ever start a job of managing data in a company without an executive mandate. Buy-in of the workforce is something that you are responsible for. You will have to work on that. These two parts play closely together and everything else will fail if these two fundamental requirements are not fulfilled. Beyond that, you have a couple of points that you may have to look at. First of all is the need of a strong and competent data office. What needs to be done centrally should be done centrally. What can better be done locally, i.e. in the countries, in the departments, elsewhere, that should be done there. So if you look at these typical silos where everything from data sources, the data science department that does screen scraping on some strange websites to get their data together, right? And then the technology, where you have the shadow IT with people having their hardware, under their desk hidden from IT, and then they build their own logic. They use the data modeling tools or visualization tools to build their own data model and all of that should be done centrally, right? So, in response, don't centralize everything. Centralize that part. Centralize the maintenance of data sources, technology and data architecture, logic, standards, and the data model. And then the business teams can concentrate on their functional areas, their functional expertise, and have a solid foundation to work on. And it doesn't hurt clarifying responsibilities, right? While data sources and data logic and data standards are within the responsibility of the data office, owned by the chief data officer, technology and data architecture should be with IT, and all other departments should support them. On the top part, the purpose, the business usage, the function-specific requirements, that are business topics. They should be in the lead, just supported by data and IT. Second point, assign clear data ownership. How can people take ownership if they don't know that they are expected to do so? Right? You have the data owners responsible for an area of the data model. Right? So the data model consists of various parts, and no gaps have to be left in between. So each part of the data model requires a data owner. And that data owner may not be the only stakeholder, but it has to be the party that maintains all the stakeholders. On the other side, you have the data champions. Those represent their business function. And that they are the ambassadors of their business functions into the data discussion, but it's up to the data organization to turn them into an ambassador or in data matters into their business functions. So, ensure all business functions actively own their data, and ownership for data domain is usually cross-functional. Set up a joint decision process. Decisions cannot be taken by one function alone. That's why it's not a good idea for a data organization to report in one of the business functions. You have to have a strategy level decision body and a decision body for directional topics. And those need to be managed well, and they have to have the right authority as well. Avoid majority votes. It's, of course, technically possible to have majority votes, but very often it's not in the sense of the company, because majority doesn't mean that you're deciding in the benefit of the company. You may just accidentally have the majority of benefiting functions versus another function that has cost to bear for a decision that exceeds the benefits of all the other functions. So think cross-functionally in those bodies as well. Then you need a data stewardship network. People need to have a framework and an infrastructure to work with each other, to understand each other. So it is a network with membership where people are proud to be member. They have to have a platform. They have to have a place where they obtain information that they don't get anywhere else. And it doesn't hurt finding a catchy name for it. And as we have seen, we have data creators, we have data consumers. They have different interests. If they talk to each other, one is speaking, the other is sleeping. Create different networks for those two. Create double loyalty. Business department is the line reporting loyalty, but people need to have loyalty to the data community, the data organization, so that they represent both views within a company. Foster sharing of information. Sharing is the most important thing that you can do with information. You can document it, publish it, communicate it, and you need a proper training approach so that people systematically learn how to deal with data. And finally, define the decision-making process. Right? And it really goes from bottom to top. First, you need the data community, people who exchange, subject matter experts who share information, share experience, offer help, and so on. Then you have a data collaboration body. Think big corporations, you have a third hierarchy level, the middle management, where people take decisions without coding in Python on their own. Then you have the directional decision bodies, the leaders, those who really take strategic decisions. And You have then the top body, the management board, that may have to take a decision twice a year, but it's even more important for that body to be aware in data matters. And the roles of a CDO and the roles of a data office have to be absolutely clear, and it has to be visible to everybody that they run the show. Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to have a look at my latest book.